Well, Bill, welcome.
Thank you.
It is so good to be able to spend some time with you. This is, I've already indicated to you, is something that is just a story that's near and dear to my heart. So I look forward to hearing the layers of what moved you through not only serving our country, but serving humanity. So it probably started early for you, this flying bug?
It happened when I was about 4 or 5. We had a maid, and she had a boyfriend. This is about 1930, 32,
Yeah.
who flew the mail.
Wow.
It was like a World War I
Wow.
fabric airplane. And
That was rough duty in those days. That wasn't easy work.
No, no. And an oil gauge had burst in the cockpit, so he had to burn dye and was grounded for a while.
Oh my goodness.
So the airplane was in his garage,
Yeah.
and he picked me up and sat me in the cockpit, and I still have the feeling of that.
Oh my
It
goodness.
was like, oh my God.
Yeah, you knew.
I knew, yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. So I soloed when I was 15
Nice.
in a J4,
Nice.
and
I have a little time in a Cub, so I know
Okay.
that world as well.
I think it cruise took off at 45 miles
I was
an
going
hour.
to say, all slower than your car.
Yeah.
How fun. But you learned to fly in a tail dragger. That's great.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
great.
I did, yeah. And then the Korean War broke out,
Yeah.
and I enlisted in the Air Force. And
How old were you then?
I was 21, I think, when I
Okay.
enlisted.
And you already had some flight training? You got your license? Or?
I just had a student's license.
Gotcha.
I didn't do a lot of flying
Yeah.
after I soloed, but some.
Yeah.
And this was January of 1951. And I went through cadets at Randolph Field, which was called the West Point of the Air.
Nice.
And it was a wonderful place. I think they should have kept it, because it had, the mess hall had paintings of great aviators all around it. It was a notable place. And then they decided they would stop training pilots there, unfortunately. So I went through basic and T6.
Nice.
And
Nice.
then I flew B-25s for a while.
Wow. So
in advance.
T6 to a B-25?
Yeah.
That's a big jump.
Yeah, it was interesting.
I'll bet.
Because I'm just going to ramble on. Is that okay?
Please, absolutely.
My instructor pilot initially flew B-26s during World War
Wow.
II. You know, Martin B-26.
Yeah.
Beautiful airplane.
Absolutely.
And his approach to landing was you have your gear down, and at 800 feet,
Yeah.
throttled back, nosedive, give it a little squirt of throttle as you rotated and landed.
Well, that's different but fancy.
Yeah, it was great. I liked it. And then my next instructor was an airline pilot who was used to making its approach from about 5 miles out. Yeah. So he'd have a nervous breakdown every time I tried to land the
You're ready to
airplane.
plant it.
And he'd go, ah!
Oh my goodness.
But fortunately, they needed all-weather interceptor pilots.
Yeah.
And I quickly raised my hand and went through jet transition in Georgia, Moody, and then to all-weather interceptor school in Panama City, Florida.
Gotcha.
And then up to Alaska for 2 years,
Wow.
which was great.
So it had to have been. So I want to hear a lot more about Alaska, particularly from Florida. Right? So Korean War is still going on.
Yes.
They want interceptors in Alaska,
Yeah.
or is the training happening in Alaska?
No, that was considered a
You were our
combat
first line
zone.
of defense, is
Yeah,
that right?
yeah.
Okay.
It was kind of along the route they thought Russian
Wow.
bombers might take.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so now that was the F-94.
Four.
So tell me a little bit about that period. That's quite again, T6, B-25, F-94.
Yeah.
afterburner. This is a whole new experience
Yeah.
for you, right?
Yeah, I flew F-80s and jet transition and T-33s.
Nice.
And I had a little taxi incident, and my instructor, Max W. Short, which was a great name because he was about that tall,
Max Short. I like
and
it.
he
Yeah.
said, "You fly well, but if you have one more taxi incident, you're out of here." So the next airplane I got was an F-80A that had been in Korea and was in terrible shape. So I pulled out, and the right brake worked, and I came to a left turn, and nothing happened. So I had to pound. I finally got out, and I wasn't going to bring the plane back. I don't want anything about taxing to get
No
in the way of
kidding.
my life. So I kept pumping that left brake, got out to the end of the runway, and there's a monitor in a little hut here watching takeoffs. I get on with scoring it or something.
Sure.
So I pounded the brakes as hard as I could, slammed on the brakes, went to 100%, did a 360.
Oh my goodness.
And as I came around to the runway, I let go of all brakes and took off. And I can still see that guy's eyes. They are about this big.
How do I enter this in my logbook? He just did a
He
360
must be some hot
and then
pilot.
took off. That's pretty fancy, man. Wow. Wow.
So, but I went through all-weather interceptor there, and then up to Alaska with my new ride. That's her soul.
So, absolutely. And what year was that?
1952.
1952. So you're in Alaska. The war is still going on. You're
Yeah.
flying interceptors.
Yeah.
So routine missions. And by the way, I heard something from Sean that that I hadn't heard before, that they had painted those planes uniquely. For
Yeah.
what reason?
For identification in the snow. You had red tails and red wings.
Amazing. So they could find you in the snow.
Yeah, yeah.
That's encouraging. Good news. Yeah. I
I'm
want
glad
to make
they
sure
were
you can
thinking
find
of
me.
me.
Right. So how long did that last? How long did that Alaska duty last?
2 years.
Okay.
And we made friends that we've had since then.
That's
In fact,
wonderful.
I went out night before last with the pilot.
That's
I
fantastic.
went up there.
I love those stories. That's wonderful. So what was the next move after Alaska?
I came back to complete my degree in industrial design, and decided I wanted to continue flying. I wanted to get into research and development. So I went back in the Air Force, flew in a tactical evaluation squadron in Florida. My squadron commander was urging the Air Force to let me get into R&D, and I arrived at Wright-Patterson the year Sputnik flew.
Wow.
Perfect
Wow.
timing.
What a buzz there must have been there.
Yes. and
Right?
yeah, and they
Oh, my
were
goodness.
NASA. There was no NASA.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was tasked to develop a restraint couch for the Air Force's Mercury project.
Wow.
And it was my first patent of like 40.
So explain that to me. First of all, 40 patents is amazing. But let me back up to the restraint couch. I want to understand that. You mentioned before we started recording that in the movie The Right Stuff,
Yeah.
there's actually a scene that shows that,
Yeah.
right? As they're testing the guys?
Yeah, it was on a shake table.
Right.
I actually thought it might have been me on the shake table, but it wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Because I did that with the. with it.
Unbelievable. Well, you also, I don't want to skip around either, but I don't want to miss this. Sitting in that device, you pulled
16 and a half.
16 and a half Gs.
Which is, I think, still a standing record.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, your skin is flying backwards and your internal organs are behind you.
Well, this I think is really interesting. You're on a gondola, and as the arm begins to accelerate, the gondola
Oh,
goes
okay.
horizontal.
Sure.
And that's the way you are until you begin to slow down. As it goes to this position, and you don't notice it, but your middle ear flips.
Wow.
But when you return,
Yeah.
it flips the other way, and to all your senses, that's the floor over there,
Oh my goodness.
and I'm on the side of a wall.
Wow.
And you get out off the gondola, and you look like you're on a drunk because you're bobbing and weaving for
Gravity is not your friend.
No.
So you're saying you start, I never knew that. You start in a prone position,
Yeah.
and as it goes, then you come up
Yeah,
into
yeah,
a seated
swings out,
position.
yeah.
That is so interesting.
And yeah,
So for context, I want to make sure that I capture this, because I mean, guys can't pass out with many fewer G's, right?
Yes,
Can't
yes.
they pass out at?
yeah, but that's eyeballs down.
Okay,
That's when blood rushes from your
Okay.
brain
gotcha,
to your feet.
gotcha.
I was eyeballs.
Well, sort of aft, I guess, right?
I was eyeballs up as you accelerate,
Okay,
and
okay.
then reverse. So,
So amazing. So that device, I'm curious that the term, what'd you call it, a couch
yeah, restraint
or
couch.
bench? It's an odd name. I can't picture couch. So what would
I
what
think
would the
it's called a
application
couch
have
because
been?
well, it was for the Air Force's Mercury project
Okay.
launch.
Yeah. For one astronaut or
One astronaut, the
Okay.
Mercury project.
okay. So fair enough. Just not a chair.
No.
It was a couch for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. A little more casual.
Yeah.
Right. Well, those had to have been some heady times, particularly. So you worked through that transition of the Mercury project transitioning from the U.S. Air Force to NASA, and all of that. President Kennedy is stepping
Yeah.
into, and we'll
Yeah.
have a man on the moon by the end of the decade.
Yeah.
And man, the race was on. This
Yeah,
was an
it was,
unbelievable
it was.
time, right?
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
Wonderful time.
So that, to me, that can only be second to World War II in terms of kind of a jingoistic national cry, right?
Yeah.
We were all on that same page. Did
Right.
you feel that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, that must have been something.
Yeah, and I was in the midst of it.
You were in the midst of it, for sure. So now tell me about, because you became known for the cooling systems, right?
Yeah,
So,
I developed cooling systems for the spacesuit. And they're still doing it at NASA, but the Mercury and Apollo cooling system was 240 feet of Tygon tubing
wow,
woven into underwear.
wow.
And when you stepped into it, it's like getting into a bowl of spaghetti.
And so that would run, it would run liquid through it.
Yeah.
And what was cooling the liquid? How did that?
Well, it depended where you were, but in space they would evaporate
Got it.
water as a
Got it.
cooling.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so, but that was an undergarment
Yeah,
under the actual spacesuit.
under the actual spacesuit.
Okay, interesting. So now you were telling me that was developing, and then Nixon canceled the program. Is that, or am I missing the time frame?
He canceled the final Apollo missions, which
Okay.
my suit was designed for.
Got it.
I think I mentioned the original Apollo suit could not get back from the lunar rover at its farthest point from the LEM if they had to traverse it rather
Wow.
than ride it.
That'd be a problem,
Yeah.
no doubt.
So, another thing is, you've seen in the TV commercials the bunny hop on the
Sure,
moon?
sure.
I did that.
Really?
Yeah, I was going through a bunch of 0G and 160 parabolas at Wright-Patterson.
Wow.
And I came up with the idea, well, I don't know that you need to walk on the moon.
Really?
Yeah, I think maybe you can bunny hop. So I tried it on there.
That is amazing.
And
You're saying in an airplane,
Yeah.
in a parabolic loop, so
Yeah.
there was 0Gs.
160.
1/6.
Yeah.
Okay.
They could, and zero.
Okay.
Both,
Okay.
depending on the parabola.
Unbelievable.
So I was at Grumman with the RX-2 suit, interfacing with the LEM.
Yeah.
And they had a 160 simulator, which was a wall at I don't know, 5 or 6 degrees from vertical,
Right.
and a trolley at top and cables, and you could jump like you were on the moon.
Oh my goodness.
So I demonstrated that. And then when I saw the videos of the guy, I was, oh, well, everybody thought of that. But 18 years later, I met a Grumman engineer who had transferred to Lockheed out here. And I said, he said, I was the engineer at Grumman when you demonstrated
He remembered.
bunny hop, and I incorporated that into that mission.
That is fantastic.
So I did that.
Isn't that unbelievable? Because I'm not sure that would have been, maybe it would have been instinctive for an astronaut to do it. I can't imagine why it would be. So if you had planted the seed,
Yeah.
they now knew this is how we're going to get around. It's more
Yeah.
efficient.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool story, Bill. I love to know that. I love to know that you created the bunny hop,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So now you transitioned from the spaghetti to cooling panels?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well,
How did that develop?
I was working with NASA at Ames Research here, and I developed a full suit with panels. Actually, it was used during brain surgery at Stanford.
Wow.
Um,
To cool the patient
to cool
during
the patient,
surgery?
Yeah.
Because that would slow down the
Yeah.
blood flow in the brain? Is that the
Slow
idea?
down the heart rate. Just,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
And so that was one thing I did.
So, but I want to understand the panels. Was your thinking behind it that it was more efficient or more?
Well, if you take a look at a Tygon tube, it's about a 1/4 inch in diameter. It has a 1/16 of an inch vinyl, which is a very good insulator, not a good conductor.
Okay.
And you have your liquid running through that. You have only tangential contact with the tube, so you're not getting much area for heat
Interesting.
transfer.
Okay.
And so we had these panels,
Yeah.
which had a printed circuit, and flow would be in an area.
Got it.
And it was, one panel was probably as good as a whole
That's amazing.
tube garment.
That's amazing,
Yeah.
truly. So now there's less of a need for a space application. There's a military application, though?
There is a military, and I participated in Desert Storm, Desert Shield.
Really?
Yeah, that was fun.
So,
We had this cooling system, and so I got permission to go to Saudi Arabia and work with the troops.
wow.
And I'd show it to a lieutenant one night, and he put it on. And he said, "Oh, wow, we're going to need we're going to need 100 of these." He said,
Wow.
"You got to meet my commander in the morning." So I'd meet the commander, and he'd say, "Wow, we need 1,500 of these." So in about 7 days,
Can I meet the general
Yeah.
and get an order for 1 million?
I met colonels. I never
Nice,
met the general.
nice.
But I had an order for, I think it was like 1,500
Oh my
suits.
goodness.
Several $1 million. And it ended up, they finally, because the war ended,
Yeah.
they ended up with about 50 of these.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And it was like a vest?
A cap vest.
Okay.
NASA taught me that the very best place to cool a body is the head. You don't get basal. When you cool a capillary,
Yeah.
it constricts,
Okay.
except on the head.
Interesting.
So
So cool the head.
Cool the head, yeah.
Interesting. And so now the military has also applied this to some of their IED technicians, right?
Yes.
Or their
Explosive ordnance.
EOD, explosive ordnance
Yeah.
disposal.
Yeah.
So those big suits that we see,
Yeah.
those have cooling systems in them?
I don't know what they do now.
Okay.
But I did provide them with head
Wow.
vest.
Wow.
I remember we were trying to sell it. They had already selected a tube suit.
Yeah.
And we were down in Arkansas. I'm trying to remember the name of it was an Army base where the DOD team had their headquarters.
Yeah.
So they got one of their guys to put on a bomb suit,
Yeah.
had this cap vest on.
Yeah.
And he was lifting concrete blocks, moving them, boom, 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 back and forth. He said, I give up. I can't even break a sweat.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah,
right?
so they immediately ordered
Wow.
these
Wow.
for Saudi Arabia.
So in the medical application, you mentioned the brain surgery at
Yeah.
Stanford.
Yeah.
And then do I understand there was also an MS application?
Multiple sclerosis, yeah. I worked
Tell me
with-
about that. I don't see the connection.
Well, what MS is a damage to the sheathing on nerve paths.
Okay.
And as the damaged sheathing occurs, there's a word for it, the operating range, which you and I are like 5, drops down to like 2.
So a very narrow band.
Very narrow band and very easy. The hotter the patient gets, the more damage it does
Wow.
or to the effect.
Got it.
So a head cooling device, head vest cooling device was very effective. So NASA and I, my company, built a 6-person unit for the VA hospital in Washington, D.C. And it was kind of a rollout, and they brought a patient in who had been MS wheelchair bound for about 3 years.
Wow.
And the best he could do was lift his foot about 3 inches off the platform. We cooled him for 45 minutes. He got up and walked across the room, like,
Oh my goodness.
over to the mailboxes and back again.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And you watched this. I
Yeah,
mean, how
yeah.
satisfying must that have been?
It was.
It must have brought tears to your eyes. That's unbelievable. I'm just curious, did the patient know that this was going to happen? Like if he were in cooler weather, did he recognize that he could move more easily? Or?
No.
Because this is much more focused cooling,
Yes,
apparently,
yeah.
and you actually brought
And
his
it's
core
liquid.
temperature.
Air has like 1,000th the conductance of water.
I learned this last week when I fell into the Deschutes River, and it was 50. I'm not kidding you, 50 degrees. And the guy outside says, "Well, we associate that with air temperature." He said it's very different in the water. I said, "Yeah, it
Yeah.
hit me really fast." Like,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah, you could
So-
not survive very long.
right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. It's just interesting for me to hear the track of your life because you were a pilot, you loved aviation, you found lots of military application, and you were willing to raise your hand and step up wherever you were needed. But then at some point you got interested in this R&D side, but had that started before? Because you said you went back to finish your degree.
I did.
You already had an interest in engineering? And,
Yeah, I had 2 years of college,
Okay,
and I had 2 years to go.
yeah.
So I wanted to get my degree.
Nice. Well, so now you've got the experience of a pilot. You're in cockpits. You're in good airplanes, not so good airplanes, and you're starting to think there's some things that I could do. So what I'm curious about is we all go through these tracks in life that suddenly turn.
Yeah.
You were going down a certain track. Sputnik launches.
Yeah.
Suddenly the Air Force mobilizes and says, "We need you to," and that's kind of the right angle, right? That you took into this area of focus.
Yeah, yeah.
So interesting. So interesting. So tell me a little bit about, through this process, Bill, I'd just love to know some of the life lessons that you learned as you think back to, like that one. Think back to that time. I know it was a very focused period of time in America where we were like, everybody rallied in. Did you just immediately go to, yep, that's what I'm needed for, that's what I'm going to do? Or do you remember maybe, like, did you struggle with it a bit? I'm not sure.
It fell on me. I was going to get into R&D at Wright-Patterson.
Yeah.
And I got there I think the very month that Sputnik flew.
Wow.
So there was no space program.
Okay.
There was no,
Yeah.
but that was it. The Air Force, there was no NASA. The Air Force had the space program.
Incredible. Incredible. Well, so take me back to some of the humanitarian things that you've done, because truly, I mean, you just mentioned the one story of watching the guy with MS. That had to have been a pretty special moment.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But I would love to know, when you think with your heart a little bit about some of the things that you've done where you've seen people being helped, Are there
Yeah.
other applications or other moments that you recall?
Yes,
What
yes.
comes to
it had
mind?
the universal effect of the cooling head vest was very positive with anyone with MS.
Nice.
So I saw quite a few people
So fantastic.
change their lives.
That's great. So I also understand that you're in a Hall of Fame. Can you tell me a little bit about that,
Yes,
Bill?
it's the U.S. Space Technology Hall of Fame.
Nice. Okay, fair enough.
And
Tell
I'm
me a
in
little bit
that,
about that.
not for suits, but for liquid cooling technology.
So great.
Yeah. So
That is
it
so
was
great.
an adjunct to spacesuits,
Okay.
but it had much broader applications. A company I founded, it's called Game Ready, which just sold for $67 million,
Wow.
and I had no
Wow.
stock in it.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but I'm
I'm a
thrilled
brilliant
that you built
designer
it.
and
Fair enough.
idiot as a businessman.
Fair enough. If you have to err on one side or the other,
Yeah.
I love that you erred on the one that you did
Okay.
because you've made a difference, right?
Thank you.
So
Yeah,
you're welcome.
yeah.
Tell me about Game Ready.
Well, I developed a series of splints, one that covered the leg, and it's a pneumatic liquid combination, cyclic pressure, constant cooling.
Wow.
And Bill Walsh was he's now deceased, was the manager of the 49ers.
Right.
And we took this to him and we put the knee piece on and I turned the unit on and he said, Jesus Christ. And I said, Jesus Christ, good or bad?
Yeah.
He said, good.
Wow.
So it was used by the 49ers. I have an autographed football from Jerry Rice.
Very cool.
Uh,
Very cool. So the difference was, so at that time they were just using ice packs?
Ice
Is that
pack.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, and ice packs are not precise. And
Sure.
as they melt, the water acts as an insulator, so
So
you
it-
get less and less.
Interesting.
Cooling.
Interesting. That makes sense. Sure. So this was a constant cooling applied right where they needed it
Yeah,
to be.
yeah,
Very cool.
yeah.
So cardiac arrest. Help me understand the cooling application in cardiac arrest.
To maintain, nerve cells are very sensitive to temperature. So cooling preserves them
Interesting.
while you're being transported to the
Okay.
hospital.
And then head trauma. You
Yeah.
mentioned head trauma. Same
Same thing.
application?
Yeah, yeah.
So that is so interesting. I work with a military charity called Boot Campaign
Okay,
out of Texas, and we work with the Cooper Clinic in Dallas.
okay.
And the entire focus there is traumatic brain injuries and post-traumatic stress. And I do, now that you say this, I know that cooling is part of the modality system that they run these guys through that have had their, their bells rung, just like
Yeah.
in the NFL,
Yeah.
right? The idea that an object in motion tends to stay in motion,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so that it
Yeah.
bangs against the side and
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of ricochets in there.
Yeah.
There's actual, when they do an MRI now, I guess it would be an MRI, they can see the damage, right?
Yeah,
So you did a fair amount of work with head injuries as well.
yes.
Well, so much of what you did have a great application, and as we were just discussing off camera, anybody that's been to a chiropractor and has had one of those cooling devices,
Yeah,
that's your invention,
yeah,
one of your patents.
yeah.
Wow. So you mentioned earlier 40 patents.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody in the Smithsonian, you're the first, I don't know anybody with 40 patents.
Now you
40.
do. Now you do.
I do. That's a legacy.
Yeah,
Right? If there's something, so as a coach, as a business coach, one of the things that I try and help clients to do is get clear on their legacy that they want to leave.
okay.
It feels to me like you've left a pretty special legacy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It is so my honor. So my honor to spend time with you.
Oh, thank you.